On our third leg of the loop, we plan to go from Daytona Beach to New York City via Intracoastal waterway. This trip we are planning a bit differently since leg 2 ended in a logistical nightmare. This leg we are having the boat hauled back to Daytona Beach and we will fly down and meet the boat there. Then we plan to leave the boat in New York City and fly home if possible. Our goal for this trip was to take the Intracoastal waterway from Daytona Beach up to New York, or just before New York where the Intracoastal waterway dumps out in the Atlantic and you have to run the Atlantic for about 100 miles up to New York, go into the Hudson, and stop in New York City. We ended up catching an Uber from the airport and met the boat at the marina, got there in perfect time. We got the boat in the water and got out onto the Intracoastal waterway. This was the first leg that we'd be flying the AGLCA Bergie, which is the group for the Great American Loop, as we didn't know about it for the first 2 legs. So this will help to communicate with people at the marinas and let others know that we're also doing the loop. Since we didn't get on the boat until afternoon and hadn't had lunch yet, we cruised up the water just a little way to grab some lunch, then continued on towards Jacksonville, where we ended up staying for the night. We Ubered into town to get food for the week, where we almost had to hitchhike back to the boat because we couldn't find an Uber back. We stayed the first night on the boat in Jacksonville. Well, most of us stayed the night on the boat. We woke up that morning in Jacksonville, filled up fuel, and made our way back to the Intracoastal waterway to head north. Much of Florida's Intracoastal waterway is very populated with houses and docks and boats, so you had to watch your wake along the way. Through these trips, a GPS becomes your best friend. The Garmin helps keep track of the channels in the Intracoastal waterway. Sometimes you have other channels that cut through the Intracoastal waterway that can get a little confusing. But if you just keep an eye on your GPS and sometimes pull up a satellite map, it makes things easier. Once we got into Georgia, things got really marshy. Almost felt like you were in the Everglades. We got a little low on fuel, so we stopped in off the Alligator River at Kilkenny Marina in Richmond Hill, Georgia. We got our fuel and souvenirs and continued on our way. This being the first full day on the water, we pushed pretty late into the night. We ended up stopping in Charleston, South Carolina, where we stayed on the mega dock, they call it. And man, was there some mega yachts there in the morning. We boated for almost 12 hours and did almost 250 miles on this day. We woke up that morning in Charleston, took a walk around the dock, got our showers, and got back on the water. We ended up passing a few of these boats running together. They had 3 or 4 guys in each boat, looked like they had vests on and were armed. Not sure. If you know what the boats are, please drop a comment. Much of this area of the Intracoastal waterway is actually fresh water. They don't even consider it brackish here. Through the day, we realized Myrtle Beach was going to be our last major city. So even though we were going to be cutting the day short, we decided to stop in Myrtle Beach and stay there for the night. This day we only ran for about 5 hours, about 120 miles on the water. We woke up that morning, did our daily maintenance, which was usually checking fluid levels, adding a little bit of oil, then continued up the Intracoastal waterway. We all love seeing the real estate along the water, from RV parks to different construction methods. It's pretty cool to see the different ways houses and properties are built along the water. The different dock types, different boats. It's really neat to see. We ended up stopping in Morehead City, filled up fuel, and got lunch at Rudy Duck's. When we're not underway, we're usually checking our phones, looking at maps, and checking out the next route to take. Here at Rudy Duck's, there was a little river otter living underneath the catwalk that kept everybody entertained. After boating for nearly 300 miles, we finally made it to Alligator River boat ramp. We ended up meeting Faith 2, who was also from Missouri there. But Alligator River boat ramp has nothing around. There was mosquito heaven, no Uber, no taxis, nothing to pick us up and take us anywhere. They did have a little hospitality room, showers, a little sitting area with a TV. I'd rate it a 1 star. We ended up having to stop here for sure for fuel and to stay the night, but I wouldn't recommend if you do staying too long. We got up that morning, filled up fuel, caught the glass in the bay, and headed over to the Dismal swamp. As we got closer to the swamp, you could see the drastic change in the water color. It turned to like a coffee. It was pretty disgusting. The Dismal swamp's just a narrow channel with trees on both sides. Not much for us to see. Most people say you definitely have to go. I don't know if I would again because the locks open at a certain time and close at a certain time and you get trapped in there. While waiting on the locks to leave the swamp, there was a Hardee's across the street. We went and grabbed some lunch. Kev even found dinner for the night. After leaving the Dismal swamp, it was a nice change of scenery and change of pace. We could finally get back on plane and go in the way we wanted to go. The Dismal swamp did have a visitor center that we skipped over so that we'd be able to make it out and get to the lock and dam in time. So there might be more to see that we missed over. Once into Norfolk, you end up passing the U.S. Naval Station, which was pretty interesting to see all the big ships. Then you head out into the Chesapeake Bay, where you could be in the middle and not see land on either side. It's a pretty huge bay. We took the Chesapeake Bay up to Solomons, Maryland, where we got a hotel for the night. The hotel actually has a marina connected. This 4th full day on the water, we ran for about 10 hours. Only did about 200 miles because the Dismal swamp slowed us down with the lock and dam and the slow speed in the Dismal swamp. We woke up in the Solomons Inn and Marina, got back out on the Chesapeake Bay, and headed towards the Delaware Bay. Once we got up to the Delaware Bay, we caught heavy winds on the bay, making for rough water. The water got pretty sketchy, so we ended up making the call, turned around, and headed back towards Delaware City Marina, where we stayed for the night. At the Delaware City Marina, we met Phil and Venus with She's Got a Fillin' and John Hawk with Grumpy. John has finished his 2nd loop. Phil and Venus have since finished their loop. We ended up waking up that morning, caught the glass of the Delaware Bay, completely different than the day before. Followed John out onto the Atlantic Ocean, up towards Atlantic City. We ended up stopping at the Golden Nugget, filled up fuel, lost a few dollars inside, but it was neat to see the marina connected to the Golden Nugget. We left Atlantic City, got back out on the Atlantic, and headed towards New York. We weren't sure if we'd make it all the way to New York, so we ended up stopping in at Seaport Inlet, got fuel, ended up picking up a tarp and the prop that took a little while to get out. Headed back out towards the Atlantic. We thought we were going to end up being on a video of all over Inlet, the way the inlet got so rough headed out. The inlet was so rough on the way out, Kev actually fell in the boat. Luckily, he didn't get injured. The Atlantic got pretty rough headed towards New York City, but we ended up making it. We got some cool pictures in front of the Statue of Liberty. Greg decided he wanted to stay in downtown New York City to check out the city, so we did just that. On this day, we ran for about 10 hours, about 250 miles on the water to get up to New York. This was the first time any of us had been to New York, so we ended up taking taxis all over the place and tried to see as much as we possibly could. If you've never been to New York City, it's a neat city to see, but we couldn't believe the drug use and pot smell throughout the entire city. New York City was our final destination, but we had no plans upon arrival. The next morning, we woke up, started checking for local airports anywhere we could fly out of to get back to St. Louis, as well as marinas we'd be able to keep the boat at. It ended up making sense to head up to Albany and fly out of Albany. We ended up finding Donahue's Marina to leave the boat at for the next couple months. So we got up and headed there. We made it just in time to catch a taxi from Donahue's up to Albany Airport and catch a flight back to St. Louis. The Upper Hudson might be one of my favorite waterways of the entire loop so far. The loop truly is an adventure of a lifetime, and I'd recommend it to anybody who enjoys boating or the water. Please subscribe to the channel or check out our other videos of the first and second leg. Also, more videos to come.